If you wanted to switch. Got it. So I'm going to, from about 10 seconds, if that's all right.
Yeah.
Okay. Welcome to Transforming Older Lives Through Business, Innovation and Social Gerontology, for what we hope will be a dynamic and valuable workshop arranged by the British Society of Gerontology's Special Interest Group on Aging, Business and Society, alongside our Longevity Week partners, with the generous sponsorship of UKRI. I'm Rob Walton, founder and principal of the Human-Centred Health Engagement Consultancy, Co-Vostra, and deputy chair of the SIG. On behalf of everyone who's prepared today's workshop, we're delighted that so many of you have come along today to join, to share your views and to explore with us. Through its work and in pursuit of our mission, the Special Interest Group is unique to ask three critical questions. How can we empower social gerontologists to work effectively with and in business? How can we support business to better understand older people and aging? And third, how can we enable the WHO Decade for Healthy Aging? Today, we're thinking about transforming older lives through the right blends of business, innovation, and social gerontology. And we're delighted to provide a keynote platform for two of the leading lights of social gerontology, Professor Judith Phillips and Dr. Ian Philp. Together, with a little help from you and me, we will envision how the business community and social gerontologists can work together to improve the lives of older people. We will explore how businesses can help to extend healthy, active lifespans by addressing unmet need in key older subpopulations, and we will report British Society of Gerontology Special Interest Group activities in 2023 and announce our plans for 2024. As far as housekeeping is concerned, please stay on screen where possible. Please remain muted unless you are speaking, and please type any questions or comments into the Zoom chat. I would also like to note that the meeting is being recorded. We have plenty of time set aside for discussion, and we're going to do our very best to make sure that every voice is heard. So, starting us off today, I'm delighted to introduce Judith Phillips. Professor Phillips is Deputy Principal of Research at University of Stirling and Professor of Gerontology there. Judith was appointed as Research Director for UKRI's Healthy Ageing Challenge in January 2020, and her research interests are in the social, behavioural, and environmental aspects of aging. Before joining the team at Stirling, Judith was Deputy Pro-Vice Chancellor and Director of the Research Institute for Applied Social Sciences at Swansea. She holds several fellowships in recognition of her contribution to gerontology, and since 2004 has been a Fellow of the Gerontological Society of America. Judith has been an active member of the British Society of Gerontology for 40 years. And she even organised its first Congress and was its president between 2008 and 2010. In 2021, she was awarded the BSG's highest honour, its Outstanding Achievement Award, in recognition of her contribution to gerontology. And in 2013, Professor Phillips was awarded an OBE for services to older people. Please join me in welcoming Judith Phillips.
Thank you, Rob. Well, thank you for that very generous introduction. And I've been asked to speak on a number of things today, but can I start off by thanking you, Rob, and Ian in particular, and those involved in setting up the SIG. It's been wonderful what you've done and what you've achieved so far, and outside my wildest dreams when I first floated the idea with Ian. So a very big thank you to you. I've been asked to address three things today. One is about the origins and the ideas around a BSG SIG. an example of how the business community and social gerontologists can work together to improve the lives of older people. And thirdly, to reflect on lessons from the Healthy Ageing Challenge in relation to those business academic relationships. So that's what I'm going to do in the next 15 minutes. And I think somebody's going to be putting my slides up. Yeah, great. Thank you. So if you can just hold that one slide there, that would be great. So how come we decided, or we thought that this was a good idea to set up a SIG as part of the BSG? Well, looking at the academic literature around ageing, research and business, there was very little around. I mean, obviously there were studies on carers in the workforce, on retirement, on leaving the workforce, but nothing in terms of engagement between the business community and academia around gerontology, very little. And there were a number of reports coming out talking about business not being ready for an ageing market, and academics that weren't really embracing work with business. So there was a gap here, a huge gap in the potential for knowledge exchange. So that was kind of in the background. And then if we go on to the next slide, one of the key things was that I was appointed as research director for the Healthy Ageing Challenge. And you can see here what the vision of that challenge was and the framework that we were operating with, the areas that we wanted to have research in, where there were opportunities for business to make a difference to the lives of older people. But we, in the call specification for the research, asked everyone to describe their meaningful engagement with business. How were they going to work with businesses? And we realized that this was quite a big ask of the academic community. And so we needed to have a supportive mechanism where conversations really could be held, not just within the challenge itself through its community of practice, but also outside the challenge where businesses and academics could come together. And I think there was a need for an honest discussion really around stereotypes from both the business end and the academic end, which was sometimes fueled by the social media. And finally, and importantly, we wanted to build a legacy for the Healthy Ageing Challenge. The challenge actually comes to an end in March of next year. There's no more money that we know of available to continue the challenge, and we didn't want to lose the skills and the expertise and the knowledge that people had built up in developing business academic relationships, and particularly working with older people. And so the BSG was a good vehicle to engage with, to actually look at how we could take that support further and to really make sure that these conversations continued after the challenge finished. So what have we actually done in relation to the challenge? And if I can have the next slide, please. This is a very busy slide, but just to give you an idea of the kinds of things that were going on in the challenge itself. It was a £98 million investment by UK government, and it was really bringing on business right from those kind of spin-outs right the way through to businesses that were ready to launch into the marketplace, and a whole variety of things in between. And wrapped around that a kind of continuum was a research programme, the Social Behavioural and Design Research Programme, and a community of practice. So I'm not going to talk about the major piece of business working through the catalyst through to the trailblazers. I'm just going to focus really for the purposes of this afternoon on the research programme, the SBDRP. Because I want to tell you a little bit about what's been going on in relation to that relationship between academia and business, what we've done and what lessons we've learned. So if we can go to the next slide, these are the 12 projects that were funded through that call, and we wanted all the projects to co-produce and to have meaningful engagement with businesses in their area of research. And it wasn't just engaging with business, it was also co-producing research with older people themselves. And I think this is one of the distinctive things of this programme of research. It was researchers engaging business and older people. They would double the amount of agendas to normal. Usually co-production goes with one group of people, and that's difficult enough. But when you've got business and older people co-producing, that's quite a difficult ask. We also had projects, as you can see, that were specifically addressing businesses. So healthy working lives, for example, looking at the social care workforce. Or another project supporting health, a healthy aging at work, looking at issues such as menopause within particular workplaces. And we were also looking at sectors. For example, the Enliven project was looking at the visitor economy, so tourism, in other words. So we were really focusing on specific areas. And all projects have been also developing business engagement strategies. So, for example, the Enliven project that's been working with people with cognitive impairment has looked at a particular model and taking businesses going from ignoring the problem where dementia was not seen as relevant or significant for business operations, right through to some awareness because somebody's got personal experience, to that business, those businesses they were engaging with, having policies and practices to encourage and engage people with dementia to become part of the core business, to having finally full engagement as a dementia-friendly business in a community where that was the norm. So that's the engagement strategy that they were employing. And projects have also been co-producing and refining their research questions. So if we have the next slide, please. I'm getting like Chris Whitty here saying next slide, please. It must be because I was with Chris Whitty earlier in the week, although he didn't actually say that in the presentation. So anyway, co-production was a key area here, both in terms of the whole research process and also in terms of the research questions. Many of our researchers and research groups provided priming funding as well to small businesses to develop some initiatives around their research. And we also concentrated on one sector, and we felt that there was quite a lot on different kinds of sectors like the social care workforce, but nothing really on sectors like the retail sector. And so we engaged with ILC UK to employ a retail impact fellow, and you'll all be very familiar with Ailsa. I see Ailsa's on the call, who's been developing this particular angle and has produced some wonderful retail guides, and I think I've got a shot of some of them in the next slide. If I can have the next slide, there we go. So I put this slide on because you can access the Q code there and have access to the retail guides and the work that Ailsa has been engaged in. We were also interested, if we can go back to the previous slide, also interested in looking at whether there were place clusters of academic business engagement. So this, what we meant by this was if you had academic institutions that specialized in gerontological research, were they attracting businesses and developing that relationship together and making future investment attractive to particular places? So we were looking at this with Oxford Brookes University and Glass AI, and we found actually that the ageing market is actually quite a hybrid of both economic innovation and social innovation. and that the range of actors were actually coalescing around social innovation. So social innovation, public sector, engaging with academia, and then bringing businesses on board, rather than businesses really being the focus of that cluster, or the academic institutions themselves. The public sector was really quite critical in developing these place clusters. We also had ECR mentorship for people who were wanting to engage more in the academic business arena with our early career researchers. And of course, we initiated the BSG SIG group. So that's given you a flavour of the kinds of things we were engaged with in the Healthy Ageing Challenge. The other thing that we did have were 2 workshops where we were discussing together with our business partners who were engaged with the projects, what kind of things were useful to them, what partnerships they were involved in, how the work with academics had actually gone, what would they do differently if they had the time over again, what were the barriers, what were the facilitators, and how collaboration had actually changed their business culture. So some very rich lessons coming out of those discussions. And so taking the temperature of business academic relationships through this workshop, I wanted to finish with just briefly mentioning what we'd learned over the last 4 years in this area and what we should be taking forward. So if we can skip ahead 2 slides, I think we'll come to another brief list, and the next one, great. So I just want to focus on a few things here, and some of these would be very familiar to you. First of all, academic business relationships need fostering and need long-term investment, particularly from research programs. Our program was 4 years, and both businesses and academics were saying it's really difficult to think around the real investment, from incubation to innovation to scale up. There's not enough time. And for businesses, working regularly with the same researchers over a long period of time was seen as really, really good and valuable and very helpful in helping them look at research around their particular business and business models. And many felt that the strength of a research program, rather than having isolated projects, really provided the support and the wraparound, particularly where we were working through a community of practice as well. So there was a lot of shared learning from many researchers, not just 1 or 2 researchers attached to the particular business or that particular project. Not everyone, of course, had a shared understanding of business impact, and vice versa, academic impact, what the goals were for each in the relationship. And also there were stereotypes on each side that had to be overcome, and that took some time to develop. Both sides needed to be interested in each other and have an understanding of goals, relationships. And people talked about people coming and going in jobs and how distracting that was, rather than having key researchers or business people in an organisation that were championing their relationship with the business or the academic institution rather. And I think that was really important, having that stability and knowing where people's roles were, what people's roles were in the organisation. Co-design was seen as essential from the start, and we're hearing this time and time again, not only with researchers and business, but having older people really at the heart of that co-design process. And also understanding that different timescales were involved here. Timeframes were different. For academics, the whole ethics process, contracts, due diligence, risk assessment took far longer in the academic arena than it did in the business arena. And that was an area of shared frustration. And of course, COVID intervened. as well. So flexibility and agility was really important. The business sector also felt there were real tangible benefits, though. It opened up new opportunities to test out their tech or their ideas, and they felt that they had an easier access to older people to test out those ideas than before. Being introduced by researchers often legitimised their ask of the older people or the organisation they were trying to target. Many businesses felt that they could trial new ideas that they couldn't do in response to a brief from one particular client. So it gave them a lot more flexibility. However, time and investment was something that people were really concerned about. For many SMEs, having to travel was a particular issue, particularly if it was in a rural area. And many of our projects covered rural areas. And so some felt that there needed to be a greater understanding of the cost structure and the difficulties in businesses to adapt to researcher needs. So finally then, ways forward. Where are we taking all of this that we've learned? So if we could have, great, thank you. So just 4 very important points here. People express, both researchers and our business community, the importance of older people contributing to a business portal. So businesses could go somewhere where they could access forums of older people and really develop that relationship more. Capacity building amongst ECRs was really important. Many have developed new skills in this area and have pitched to businesses and really are able now to really enjoy that relationship that they've built up with businesses, and we don't want to lose that. So I think making sure that there is funding and support for ECRs is really critical. Many people felt that there should also be champions, both in the business organisation and the research institution, that you need to have key people who will take these initiatives forward. And despite all the initiatives that we've been developing, there is, of course, still no ageing market. And businesses continually face other issues, such as workforce shortages. And I think it's essential that we see this development as really central to going forward, that we don't just see business academic relationships as a luxury to be enjoyed when things are going well, but something that's really vital, that even when businesses hit hard times, or even when research hits hard times, that we keep this dialogue going. I think it's critical if we are to address the needs of older people and the wants of our ageing population. This is an area where we need further investment and further discussion and further support. And again, let me reiterate how delighted I am in how the BSG is supporting this area of research and academic endeavour. So thank you very much. I hope I haven't overstepped my 15 minutes, but thank you very much for letting me get through my slides.
Thank you so much, Judith. If it's okay with you, I'd like you to stay a little bit longer because I see that there are a couple of questions in the room, and actually I had prepared a couple of questions for you myself as well. So to the audience, if you have any questions for Judith, there are going to be 2 opportunities, one for Judith now and then one for Judith with Ian towards the end of the session. And so please do type any questions that you have in. But there's a really nice one here from Sarah Campbell. And she says that it's not so much a question, but it's really asking for some tips. But it says, we found that being a company working with a university, that running trials as a research project has opened doors with potential customers. However, we've then found it a challenge to convert those research trials into commercial opportunities, as the research requirements, ethics, etc., then create their own challenges to shifting the project at the end of, commercially driven. I would love any tips or learnings that you might have on this. So the floor is yours again, Judith.
Thank you. That's a really difficult question, and I've no easy answers for it. I mean, I do think that there really is an issue, and certainly, you know, with my DP hat on as well, there is an issue in our research institutions. Obviously, we have to have ethical guidelines, and nobody would dispute that. But I do think we tie people up in knots, and I think there are lessons to be learned about how to set up teams in universities to really take these issues forward and to speed up that kind of commercialization. I know at Stirling we do have a team that do that, but it's still an issue. You know, I think that there are particular things where the research community need to come together, and this doesn't just apply to ageing research, of course, where we do need to speed up that commercialization. So I've got no particular answer from that, other than I think we need to go back to our institutions and to really, you know, suss out what is the mechanism to start with, because a lot of our researchers don't know that, and then to put pressure on those areas.
Brilliant. Thank you, Judith. I have another question here, and I'm going to ask Alison Ben-Zimra to join the call. And maybe, Alison, if you could come on screen and ask this question. I'm not so sure that I quite understand it, which is why I'm asking.
Thank you, Rob. Hi, Judith.
Hi.
My question was around, you talked about place clusters, and I was wondering if any research had been done internationally of good examples of place clusters. So that's the first part of my question. And then the second part of my question is, in examples of place clusters, are there examples where the business innovation drove the collaboration, not necessarily the social innovation?
Good question. I in terms of the international piece, there are place clusters, not so much in the aging arena, but in terms of other you know, life sciences, where aging is part of that kind of ecosystem. But in terms of the kinds of things that we were doing in terms of the social gerontology and the social behavior and design aspects, then we didn't actually look at the international arena, and I'm not familiar with there being any such example in the UK. I mean, we were two things. The methodology wasn't, how shall I put it, foolproof then. So we were looking at AI, and we employed Glass AI to do a piece of work looking at where the clusters were using AI, and that was quite interesting and very difficult to do, actually. You know, and we did find there were certain clusters around Newcastle and Manchester that you'd expect, where you know there are gerontology centres, and London, for example. But in doing a deep dive in those areas, it was the social innovation. It was that was the key thing, rather than businesses attracting the academics. So the businesses were coming to the researchers and to the public sector kind of links, rather than you know, them attracting researchers themselves, if that makes sense.
It does make sense, and I think that's something that I'm always so aware of who's in these conversations, who's at the table. And I think that's something that we collectively need to work more on, is actually getting businesses, more established businesses, maybe not necessarily startups, in the discussion.
Yeah, and of course businesses, they want to be global. You don't want to just keep it local.
There's a hand up here from George McGuinness. George, please join, put yourself on screen.
Yeah, I was just going to sort of add to what sort of Judith has said. One of the big issues that really came out of the sort of clusters work, because I suppose I was personally convinced I could spot about 5 areas that I thought were really good nascent clusters. The researchers couldn't actually identify that. What they commented was that part of the issue is that healthy aging is a stage of life, not a specific industry. So all the data is actually grouped by industry, and it's very, very difficult to pull out in a sensible sort of way who's actually working in that. So we probably have a better intuitive feel of where there are groups of businesses interested in and collaborating. And really what the study was trying to do was, could you take classic economic theory of clusters and see the sorts of thing that you'd expect from an industrial cluster? And I think, Judith, if I remember the report rightly, they said they couldn't really see that. But what they could see is where there's a long-term, consistent political will to do something, you get an effect of many businesses wanting to actually contribute to the agenda. Internationally, I would absolutely support what Judith says. We know that there are some nations that are doing interesting stuff. I'm not sure that they're doing it concentrated in a way that says that, you know, in Japan, Kyoto is a cluster or whatever like that. I think it is much more diffuse. And for me, that has huge implications for the institutions that we set up to make sure they have the reach to actually reach out and support a diffuse market rather than a clustered area. Hope that helps.
Sorry, George, I left you in a dust bowl there. I was on mute. Yeah, I was going to say, Judith, I thought it was very helpful. And Judith, do you have any response to that?
From what George has said, no, I totally agree.
Yeah, anything to add? Okay, great. So I just wanted to check if there is anybody else in the room who'd like to ask any questions of Judith. We are going to come back to this anyway. I had a question just before we move on to the next part of the meeting. But it really relates to this strategic change that seems to be going on right now at the governmental level around the healthy aging activity. And given your place and your position, I mean, it's been an amazing journey and an amazing sustained period of investment, you know, so we should be very pleased about that. But at the same time, you have such a lot of experience. I wonder if you were to be able to wave a magic wand tomorrow, what would be the one or two things that you could just change here that would, I mean, beyond the funding piece, but what would be the one or two things based on what you've learned that you would change?
Oh, gosh. That's more a ponder question than instant answer question, I think, Rob. I mean, the funding landscape is definitely something, I mean, you know, I would want to change. I mean, having sustainability over a much longer period of time is really important, and really looking at life course issues as well, the preventative agenda. I mean, some of us have, you know, heard from Chris Whitty this week, and I think, you know, his agenda is very sensible in that area. So I do think that is one key thing, and really getting businesses on board. I would hate to see this kind of initiative fall by the wayside in our funding landscape. So I do, you know, whether it becomes concentrated in a particular sector, for example, like housing, but we really do, or, you know, care, for example, we do need to, you know, keep our voices active in terms of advocating for these kind of relationships to be at the heart of any kind of research program.
Thanks, Judith, and also thank you to you for your creativity for building our little piece of the world in all of this. And you know, one thing you can be absolutely certain of as we proceed with this group, that focus on advocacy and driving the right outcomes here is very much front and center of our thinking too. So with that in mind, if it would be okay, I'd like to spend a few minutes during this longevity week session just to walk through a few slides that report particularly the work that we've done between 23, so the last 12 months, our second year of operation, and what we're planning to do in the year ahead. So this is our 12 months at a glance, and it very much is a glance. It's been a real web of activity across many stakeholders. And so what I want to be really careful about is that, you know, there's a small hub of people who work within the SIG, but it's a real village of people that have helped to create impact for this organization and its activity. Next slide, please. So what I'd like to do is just to sort of step back and just think a little bit about, you know, some of the comments Judith made at the beginning about why the SIG came into being. But with the population aging and rapid innovation in the development of services and technologies, there's really never been a better opportunity to improve and build connectivity and engagement between gerontology and the business community. So we launched this project in September 2021, became the special interest group as part of the BSG, and our aim is to generate a dialogue between social gerontology, business, and more widely in civil society. And so that piece around our activism and advocacy in this space is really integral to the activity that we undertake. Our mission is to facilitate engagement between gerontology and business communities, and to ensure that older consumer representatives, to help older, as well as older consumer representatives, we're able to help older people live independently and do the things that give their lives meaning. And our SIG is governed very much by a leadership team, which represents some of the leading UK stakeholders in ageing, health, and social policy, and business too. And they very much govern the activity that we undertake. Next slide, please. So in 2023, our year two activities, we did 4 things, you know, very simple activities, but actually quite complex in the delivery. The first was the development of our gerontology in residence program. So speaking to this very much, and actually some of the comments in the chat here are speaking very much to this idea of how we sort of lever or inject an older voice of experience or an expert voice around gerontology into the business space. And so that was one of our key activities. The second was really around a year-long focus that we've had on retail. And so the idea here was to conduct a one-day retail summit. And the idea of that was to support businesses to better understand older people and aging and help them with their consideration of business development. The third activity was the European Journal of Marketing, where we built an editorial team with our partners at Emerald. And the idea here is to enable the development of a journal, special edition that looks specifically at improving the business offer of marketing, particularly with a focus on retail. And another one of our objectives was to grow the membership. And so this year we almost doubled our membership, moved from 250 to 400 members. And we are hoping that over the next 12 months will expand to near 1,000. But certainly we have the momentum of growth. I'm going to go into the next slide, a little bit more detail into these projects. We were delighted that the successful applicant for the gerontologist in residence in 2023 was Heather Mulkey. Heather is a very active member of the BSG. She's chaired successive groups and special interest groups, and has certainly played a very keen role in the development of the SIG over the course of the last 12 months or so. So we launched this project in March 2023 in partnership with Zinc, a member of our leadership team. Zinc is a venture builder and also partners with UKRI to develop the Healthy Ageing Catalyst program. Through that program, and with support from Zinc, we were able to provide 1 3-month internship at companies that were enrolled in the Venture Builder program. And actually, I think that as Heather has reported back to us about her experience, I think it's been very clear to us that she gained a lot of value, both in terms of her own skill set, but in the education around business and the business environment for Heather, and actually was able to join their boot camps. So she was given quite a lot of, if you like, academic and technical knowledge around business activity and business planning. And she also received dedicated support from Zinc, so that if she needed people to talk to, mentors, that sort of thing, that was all provided for her. I think it's really important to say that this was very much a two-way street. So here we have an individual with an enormous amount of experience and seniority, and brought nothing but value to the people that hired her and recruited her. And so I think that what you get here is, and certainly the output for Heather and this has been very much a sustainable relationship with these businesses. And I think probably it's not too much to say that some of them are probably clients to Heather today, which has been an amazing outcome. Next slide, please. The Retail Summit was absolutely a keynote event for us in 2023. We held it in May. It was the first time we'd ever done a one-day event. We were very nervous about attendance, but you followed through, you showed up, and we had a really well-attended full-day event. I want to say straight away that this would not have happened had it not been for the leadership of Ailsa Forbes, who is a member of the International Longevity Centre UK, and latterly her colleague Paul Goulden. I'd also like to say thank you to him. He came and was very, very eloquent in his presentation of this at the BSG conference back in July. So the objective of this one-day event was to try to articulate a vision of retail that would serve older people and aging people well. It would look at what the blockers to that would be and the opportunity, so how we might achieve that vision. And then the sort of steps and tricks and tactics that might get us to that vision faster. And so we were delighted to have presentations organised by Ailsa, looking at things like institutional attitudes and where this came from. A great presentation from Dr. Anthony Howarth at Oxford University. We looked at ageism and redressing ageism in fashion with great support from Dr. Hannah Swift at Kent University. We identified barriers to the route to aging in the older marketplace, thanks to Susan Costello at Era Design, a dedicated creative agency that supports communication to this this population group. And the ignored bias, ageism in marketing, Debbie Marshall at the Silver Marketing Association, great presentation there too. We had 60 delegates throughout the day, amazing retention of those delegates as well. So the people who joined us at the beginning of the day were still with us after 2 coffee breaks and a lunch break. They were still with us at the end of the day, which shows some tenacity. But I think it also shows that Ailsa and Paul absolutely hit the nail on the head in terms of the attractiveness and the importance of this conversation. There are videos available for those people who missed it. If you wanted to go to our YouTube Aging Bites channel, our communications lead, Michelle, who is helping us with the slides and the management of this call, very kindly edited a series of very sort of bite-sized chunk videos that you maybe could go through a few different viewings. But certainly one of the things that we know is that those videos have now been picked up by a few universities, are making their way very much into knowledge exchange at the academic level. And we are just looking forward to seeing that become much more mainstream over the next 12 months. So that was that one. Next slide, please. The European Journal of Marketing. This is about impact articles. And I was on Twitter the other day and something popped up on my feed. So I just thought I'd share the little joke. But if anybody wants to know what an impact article is, it's the middle of this Venn diagram. It's the sweet spot here. And it really is about taking away the unicorns and making sure that the things that measure are relevant, and the little bit of sweet spot in here is the stuff that is impact. And that's what we're after in the work that we're doing with this project. So over the last 12 months, we've identified a partnership with Emerald, which we've cemented. We've been able to think about a project that will unlock the potential of older consumers. We issued a call during September 2023 and have so far secured 12 contributors from around the world, from lots of different disciplines, all very focused on generating change and results in the older space. And we are looking forward to sharing that with you a little bit later, probably the first half of 2024. Next slide, please. So this comes to the bit about where we're going. I think we've all been rocked really by the success of this program in 2023. Extremely high levels of engagement from the small amounts and the core team of the work that we've been doing. And actually, we really want to build on where we've been and to try to build on some of the successes in 2024. So we'll continue and expand the SIG Gerontologist in Residence program with Zinc. And we were putting out an early launch in Q1 next year. We'll be hopefully promoting that widely, and also really seeking a longer term approach to this. And so we will also be including this as part of our sustainable funding plan for 2025. But right now we're in a position to be able to offer one more gerontology in residence program, but obviously we'd like to do lots. So that's where we are with that. We will complete the European Journal special edition. But actually that partnership has gone very well this year. There's certainly been a lot of conversation around how we might extend that partnership to make it more sustainable. I'm not going to say any more on that topic at the moment because it's sub judice in some kind of way. But my sense about it is that we'll probably be making an announcement about where this goes a little bit later in 2024. But we're certainly full of hope that we'll be able to do something quite groundbreaking with Emerald in the vein of this space and the vein of impact articles. But I don't want to say any more than that. We will conduct 3 workshops this year rather than one-day summit. So in the first half of this year, those will be conducted. I apologize for the typo that says H2 here. It should say H1, but we will start to put those events out in February and March, and we'll run through to May with 3 workshops. One of the things we will do as well is an in-person event at the Discovery Science Park in Kent. Our chair, Ian Philp, is based there, and clearly a cluster in that area of dedicated organisations focused on healthy ageing, and so a really good opportunity to showcase the SIG at that. We will also extend our activity to become much more advocacy focused in 2024, raising the profile of our work among policymakers, academics and businesses. So please stand by for the invitations to the events in Parliament or wherever it is that we finish up. Committee Room 10 outside Portcullis House is likely to be our venue, but one would hope that we can get those things organised in the second half of 2024. And as I say, our one quantitative metric at this point is 1,000 members by the end of 2024. So our hopes are high, our ambitions are great. We need you to join us and participate. Next slide, please. And we very much look forward to taking this journey with you. And now I'm going to take a risk because the last time I spoke to this gentleman, he was on a train making his way through the heady hills of Kent. And so I'm just hoping that Ian Philp is online.
Hi.
Oh, are you a sight for sore eyes? And Ian, I just wanted, if it was okay with you, to just make a quick introduction of you. So Dr. Ian Philp is the founder of Aged Care Technologies. ACT was the winner of the 2021 United Nations World Summit on Information Society Prize for Innovation in Healthy Aging for its potential to add 100 million quality life years for older people and reduce global costs of long-term care by $45 trillion. No small amounts there. Dr. Philp has been an advisor to the World Health Organization in person-centered care for older people. He holds a doctorate in medicine from the University of Edinburgh and was a practicing physician for 35 years in the UK NHS, spending 8 years as an executive medical director. As Professor of Healthcare for Older People at the University of Sheffield, he led teams which won the UK Hospital Team of the Year in the care of older people and the Queen's Anniversary Prize for Higher Education for Research into improving the quality of life of older people. From 2000 to 2008, Ian was the National Clinical Director for Older People in England and led the development and implementation of the National Service Framework for Older People. He's an acknowledged public expert on healthy aging, having helped design and present national TV programmes for BBC and ITV. And in August, company with Judith, Dr. Philp was awarded a CBE in the Queen's Birthday Honours in 2009 in recognition of his work to improve the lives of older people. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Ian Philp.
Thank you, Rob. Very nice introduction. I'm starting my third and last year as chair of the special interest group. Judith asked me originally if I'd take this on, and I think, Judith, quite a few people had been approached, and I was about the fourth or fifth to say, yeah, I'll give it a go. And but it's been great, and it's been great. Not least because of the work that Rob has done to bring so much drive, commitment, time, and energy to our work. And I think it was right that Rob should present the work of the last year, which he's been across all of these initiatives, and will continue to drive and continue to support Debbie Keeling, who is chair-elect for this special interest group. And Debbie will take over from me this time next year. So I thought I'd be a little bit selfish during Longevity Week and talk about the things that are really close to my heart in relation to our topic about aging business and society working together. And what is really close to my heart here is the enormously rich world of startups in England and the other countries of the United Kingdom, which are innovating across the challenge of aging and the care of older people. There are so many, and there are so many doing great things. And one of the things I'd like to be able to do is try and raise the profile of some of these brilliant businesses and get them engaged with the social science community to help move forward their work in an evidence-based way. From the business and the social gerontology communities, forge the links that will help create a better world for all of us as we age and for the older people right now. Sarah Campbell asked a question in the comment about, well, what about the big businesses? And certainly we're not excluding large businesses working with our group as well. And while my focus in this talk is about smaller businesses, and I've just come from an event in London, which is why I was on a train that was slightly delayed, with Big Pharma. And it was, how does Big Pharma partner with the NHS in future? And our panel agreed that we need an overarching mission that unites the stakeholders. And the overarching mission could be looking to extend healthy, active life for older people. And that's a big theme of Longevity Week. The Longevity Week Forum, which kicked things off on Monday morning, was all about extending health span without necessarily extending lifespan. And, you know, we're getting people, everybody from Sir Trevor Phillips, Sky News commentator and former chair of the Equalities Commission, to Peter Gabriel, talking about music and creativity into later life. So I think we're in a really great sweet spot for working together on a big societal challenge. So we'll go to the next slide, please. Just wanted to introduce a couple of gerontology concepts that many of you will be very familiar with. Work done in the 1970s established that we go on trajectories as we age, which could be simplified into three pathways. Successful aging, where we age as well as we possibly could, and we live a very long life and finally drop dead of old age at about 110, but as a young person, to take it to the greatest extreme. So, and some people experience successful aging pathways in life. There is the usual aging, which is actually driven by socioeconomic determinants. It differs. Usual aging differs for people who are richer than people who are poorer. But usual aging is characterized by many years of disability and disease and suffering prior to death. And then pathological aging would be regarded as aging that, you know, you don't even get there. You know, you develop cancers and heart disease and strokes and, at an earlier stage, and you drop off even the usual aging pathway. Of course, the major goal is how do we help more people achieve successful aging? And I'll come on to a bit of that around the work that many startups are doing in this area to promote successful aging. So we go to the next slide. This is from Andrew Scott and colleagues, who is the inspiration behind Longevity Week, and his paper in Nature Aging, published I think nearly a couple of years ago now, that shows that the economic modeling of the benefits of extending healthy active life, even by just 1 year, if that was achieved for, on average, for every American, it would add $50 trillion to the US economy. So this is of benefit to the exchequer. And if we did the same in Britain, we could pay for a proper HS2, we could pay for a proper national care service, we could pay for a donut type solution to the funding of long-term care. If we can just extend healthy active life by 1 year, we can do lots of other things because of the general economic benefit. So next slide, please. This is the last conceptual slide. It's just, I think we should conceptualize the older population into 3 groups, because there are different imperatives for how we would engage with these 3 groups, but with all groups looking to extend healthy active life and move towards more successful aging. So there's the general population, all of us. We get old from the point of inception. So this is a womb to tomb life course approach. How do we change the environmental, the social, and the psychological determinants to drive healthy behaviors, healthy lifestyles, healthy environments that will promote healthy aging? And even in late life, it's a really good thing to do. And I'll come back to feature an example of a brilliant company working in that area with older people that is promoting the sort of later life experience that we would all want. Then I think the most neglected group in our population with regard to their aging experience are older people, largely 75 and above, living at home and carrying lots of problems. Medical problems, cognitive problems, psychological problems, environmental problems, financial problems, relationship problems. This population group I think somebody's got their
yeah, I think it might be Deborah Gale.
There you go. Thanks, named and shamed, Deborah. But we've all done it. This group of older people living at home, their needs are not being met, and therefore there's unreported needs of older people at home, unaddressed, present late, cause undue suffering, early loss of functioning. I'll come back to that. I can't claim that I'm going to feature a wonderful business there because it's my own. My own business is working in this space, but I want to tell you a little bit about how we might approach the unmet needs of older people living at home. And then there's another group that consume the vast amount of NHS and social care budget and generate a lot of need for support from families, and that's frail older people. And if we think about it, the goal with frail older people needs to be to optimize their independence as much as possible, because that's what frail older people say they want most from health and care services. For at-risk older people, it's about secondary prevention. It's about identifying these problems and doing something about these problems based on what's important to them. And for the general population, it's more of health promotion, primary prevention, access to great healthcare, a good civic society that enables healthy behaviors, the sort of local area work that Judith has described better than anybody else as a gerontologist in terms of how you create these environments and transport and housing and communities that promote healthy aging. So 3 segments. Next slide, please. 3 companies. Joy Club, I'll talk about general population of older people, aged care technologies, at-risk older people, BIDE, frail older people. Let me just come on and thank you to my colleagues from Joy Club, Hannah and Tom from BIDE, who've contributed their slides. So next slide, Joy Club. Next slide. And Hannah Thompson, the founder, has just won Female Entrepreneur of the Year and some prize for her work with Joy Club. It's an amazing platform. It comes out of her personal experience with her parents, who experienced great joy in later life through being enabled and connected to things that redefines in quotes, retirement, whatever that means. Next slide, please. So it's a subscription model, but several large businesses have now paid for this for their older members and for families of older people, so that they would enjoy their later lives. Next one, please. Well, 100% positive customer service rating. I don't think it's over to the top to say it's changed my life. And I'm talking about Hannah's work. There are many other businesses in this space, but the thing is, if we can resonate with the things that motivate older people to really get out there, get socially connected, get more physically active, mentally active, engaged in the lives of their families, their communities, most of all, I think, with their peers and friends, we can revolutionize late life experience. Next slide, please. Oh, so aged care technologies. Next slide, please. So, well, we have a brand mission, but it's about addressing the unmet needs of older people. We build on 30 years of international research. We know about the top 56 threats to health, well-being and independence in old age that many older people living at home are experience. And we've got a proven approach that can help relieve suffering, extend healthy active life, and reduce pressure on health and care services, and reduce absolute costs of care through a compression of morbidity. Next slide, please. As Rob kindly mentioned, we won the inaugural United Nations WSIS Forum Prize for Digital Innovation for Healthy Aging because of the potential to have global impact. Next slide, please. And quite a complex intervention that we have to work with health and care systems to do, identifying and contacting older people through mainstream offer, but also to ensure we don't leave older people behind. How do we reach marginalized groups of older people? Providing an assessment, then connecting people to sources of support, measuring impact, and providing insights from the information generated from the use of the tool. Next slide, please. And we know from the independent evaluations of the work that we can add this extra quality of life year. We can reduce some of the giant causes of suffering in old age, things like loneliness, pain, and depression. We can reduce risk of critical injury from falls, and we can identify and help ensure that safeguarding systems are put in place from older people at risk of abuse. You know, we can't shy away from the downsides of aging, I think, to be realistic about what old age can bring some people, but we can mitigate, we can identify and mitigate these problems. And we can improve the quality of life metrics around well-being, independence, social connections, staying healthy. And we can enable older people to remain more independent for longer within their homes. And at a system level, this prevention work can reduce pressure on health and care systems. It can tackle the inequalities of old age. We can make better use of our limited and brilliant workforce that engage with older people, you know, more than 1 million care workers and care assistants in this country. the work that so many doctors, nurses, therapists, podiatrists, optometrists, pharmacists, dentists do with older people, make better use of their time to bring their specialist skills. And we can compress morbidity. And the model for the UK is compress morbidity by a year. You take out about £33,000 worth of cost to provide long-term care per older person. And I think these numbers are now need to be updated in line with inflation. These were 5-year-old data, so it's more like £50,000 now. Okay, so next slide, please. Bide. So now we're talking about frail older people, and here's something I've stumbled upon through a networking meeting of startups from Dr. Tom Adler, who's Tom, pleased to see you're on the call. I think this is brilliant, and it's a clinical insight. It's a device that sits by your bedside. It detects when you might be getting out of bed during the night, change in lighting, movement, and it provides a message that helps the older person wake up before they get out of bed, which means it can and has been shown to drastically reduce, if not eliminate, the risk of nighttime falls in care homes. It's a very simple idea, but absolutely brilliant. And given the human and the financial costs of falls and subsequent fractures, loss of independence, pain, I just can't recommend this enough. Next slide, please. These are Tom's data. Next slide, please. And this is how it works. And I'm sure we can, circulate the slides afterwards so you can read the detail. Next slide, please. It is so simple, but it is so brilliant. And because it's not the sort of digital technologies that require information sharing, intrusion, data leaks, none of that applies. It's a contained system. Next slide, please. The Holy Grail of fall prevention still remains out of reach. Well, we can't necessarily prevent all falls in old age, but we can reduce the numbers of falls and the risks of falls. Thank you. Next slide, please. And as I say, we'll share the further data. Next slide, please. There's Tom's contact information if you want to hear more about Bide. Next slide, please. Right, this is my last slide. Business has the potential to revolutionize longevity. I've not even touched on stuff like AI that can help us get to grips with proper early recognition of problems and response to them. But if we can bring the business community together with the social science community, together with policymakers on a grand mission to extend healthy active life and to promote successful aging, it's a win-win-win. And I'd suggest that together we can, and that in a small part at least, the British Society of Gerontology Special Interest Group on Aging, Business and Society will make it this agenda. Thank you for your attention. That's my lot, so I'll hand back to Rob, who can facilitate questions or take us to our close.
Well, I think you created quite a conversation here in the chat, Ian. Quite a few comments, and I don't want necessarily to read them all out, but I do want to call on a couple of folk. Bruce Frankel, you said a few things on the chat here. I wonder if you fancy getting off mute and saying a few words. Oh no, we can't hear you, Bruce. It's unfortunate. let me go to the next person, but try to sort your mics out, and I'll come back to you. There was another comment here from James Sheridan. And James, I don't know if you wanted to participate.
Yeah, always happy to participate. Hi, can you hear
You're
me?
welcome.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed the Healthy Aging conference this week. Met last year and it was good, but this year was better. Probably a bigger space and more of a chance to speak to people. Chris Whitty gave a very good talk, you know, I suppose I'm looking for a rallying cry. But he mentioned about why isn't there a mother care for aging on the high street, which, I know, we've all got ideas, and there are reasons why probably mother care wouldn't work, and mother care did go bust, so it's perhaps not the best example. But it's definitely something we can build on, and that understanding is of the momentum and the movement that is needed for healthy aging, for longevity, for preventative care. It's great to see it's coming from the private sector, and there's a lot of, we need 100 companies, 1,000 companies involved to actually make a difference. That was my point. Thanks.
Alexander Galimberti, would you like to ask a question?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Hi, Alexander, welcome.
Hi, thank you. Thank you so much, Ian, for your talk. I had a question. So I've worked as a tech entrepreneur for the past 10 years, and I've always worked and collaborated very closely with the end users. I find it's very difficult in the aging space to engage with a representative sample of, or even just older people. I've tried various approaches, and I was wondering if you had any advice that you could share of how to best do this to make sure that the product and the services are good for the people who should use them.
It's a great question, Alexander. We're not systematic about how we do these things. We need to do co-development. And if you're a startup like you and me, then you don't necessarily have the resources to go out and create your own consumer panel and all of that. But what I found in work we're doing in Suffolk is that we're working with HealthWatch, and HealthWatch Suffolk have produced a co-production guide and a set of 6 principles for how we should co-produce innovation and solutions for older people and other groups. So I think they're quite a good point of contact. If you're wanting to test, develop and iterate as you would want to any innovation, maybe that HealthWatch Suffolk is particularly wonderful, but I would suspect that many health watches around the country will be able to advise and also have access to panels of users. That's what we're doing anyway.
Thank you so much.
All of this, and I wanted to bring you back into the conversation. Have you got any reflections on what you've heard here, particularly this last question from Alexander?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, I just wondered if you had any reflections on what you'd heard. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other kind of avenue to explore is university departments that have got gerontology courses are doing research with older people, because most of them now have large groups of older people that they consult with regularly, introduce to business. I mean, probably the most familiar example is the Voice Network coming from Newcastle University. I always think it's worth approaching universities that may be local to you just to explore that, because that will, I think help if you want to really get to the voices of older people. Many of them have large communities of older people working with them on specific projects, and would be very happy to have that conversation with you.
My one comment on that is I found working in the universities sometimes, it's often assumed that business will provide money to the university for that sort of work. So I'm not sure if there's a way of which to frame it, or in your experience, to make sure, you do not have to provide funds, but particularly if you're cash constrained as you're young.
Yeah.
So thanks for that, Judith. I'm desperate to go back to Bruce Frankel here and just see if we can get that microphone working. No look.
Any luck? Do you hear me?
Brilliant.
Welcome. Oh, you do? Oh, well, great. I'm happy that works. Well, thank you. First of all, I'm grateful for the opportunity to listen today and to hear Judith and Ian and hear about BIDE too. So mostly I'm here as a listener. But I've been in the aging space for the last 12 or so years. I was a reporter, investigative reporter in New York for most of my career, and then ended up writing a book about how to age successfully based on 12 profiles that I did in 2010, and that drew me into the aging space. And I lead a national organization here called the Life Planning Network, which is of experts from diverse disciplines who advocate for optimizing positive aging. I've also, my company, we build digital communities, e-campuses, e-communities to support older adults. So for instance, Stonewall Village NYC is a village to support older LGBT in New York City that we've been working with closely for several years. And we're about to launch a community, a peer-to-peer business community to support entrepreneurs 50 plus, which is why I was particularly interested in today. As most of you probably know, that's the fastest growing cohort in the world of entrepreneurship, as well as the most successful other than the 40 to 45 cohort, more likely to be in business 5 years later than a 30 and under, more likely to create high worth organization. So, you know, as I was listening today, I was really keenly interested in this intersection between creating business and creating businesses that support older adults in towards healthy longevity. So and I'm grateful for all the comments.
Thanks so much, Bruce. I really appreciate the testimony. Do Ian and Judith, do you have any responses here for this?
Bruce, please join us. Bruce, it'd be great. For what you're saying, please join us. I think your skills, your knowledge, your networks will enhance what we do. Although we're a British society, we invite international members. We're on a global mission to do the sort of things that you've described in your work, and congratulations on your achievements.
I don't know what she likes. It doesn't tell me.
Well, I'm delighted to join Sharon Rose, who's here, is both a colleague and a friend, and so I certainly knew, and I believe Adrienne Berg, who was also an associate, is also a close associate. She and I worked with her on building the Catalyst community, which was, as you may know about, was devoted to geroscientists around the country, and we did 3 really wonderful conferences, online conferences. We had about 1,000 geroscientists each year for that.
And if I can just follow up from what you were saying on entrepreneurs over 50, I think it's a really neglected area. I think we need to really look at that quite seriously, actually, but in terms of all sorts of things. And, you know, government needs to wake up to the fact that, you know, we're losing really key members from our workforce over 50, but also the whole entrepreneurship and skills development in that needs to be sort of, you know, increased on their agenda as well.
Yeah, and we know that entrepreneurs 50 plus are also more likely to develop products of social good. So.
Yeah.
So I have one more question for you, Ian, if that's all right. And Judith, please feel free to comment on this if you like. But we have a comment on the chat here that just said, is saying thank you very much for bringing examples of great businesses into this space. And it's exactly what we as a community need to be doing. It's part of our knowledge exchange. Really perfect comment. I'm so pleased to see it. What I didn't do in the 2024 planning, Ian, was talk about the ideas that we've had around workshops for the first half of the year. And I wondered if maybe you might just add a little flavour to what we're planning to do there. I wonder if you could do that.
Thanks, Ron. We did a lot of work last year in the retail space, and we see that work continuing under the leadership of the International Longevity Centre and others. What we've pivoted to doing for our plans for the year ahead is to try and bring the business community in a stronger way into this special interest group. And I've given a sort of top level presentation with examples, including indulgently my own business. But there are hundreds, thousands of brilliant entrepreneurs in this country and elsewhere who are doing great stuff in healthy aging. We want to give more profile to these groups. We want to continue to foster and development and talk well of people that are doing the hard yards to create solutions to improve the lives of older people and to improve our chances of successful aging. So that's going to be our focus through the online workshops. We'll do one in partnership with Zinc, with their program and their cohorts that are working on healthy aging. We'll have a day at Discovery Park, Kent, but we'll have an hour of that day for online engagement from this special interest group as well, where we'll bring some of the companies together. And I think we'll probably try and bring in some of the big companies as well to that event. So please, if you are, those of you on this call who are entrepreneurs, involved in businesses, join us and let us know about your work. We'll try and give it some profile in the events ahead. We'll also try and bring in the social science community to hear about the work that the companies are doing and think about how the social science community can engage with these businesses. And we'll try and bring in potentially some policymakers and funders into that community as well, to think about how can this work that our great businesses are doing in partnership with our great universities to advance knowledge, understanding and solutions for older people. So this is an invitation really for colleagues on this call. And thank you so much for staying with us in an early evening session to join us, and we'll try and work together to raise the profile of the importance of the business sector to contribute to healthy aging.
Well, Ian, I just wanted to say thank you to you and to Judith for brilliant presentations today. Very, very interesting, very authentic and really illuminating. I also just want to say thank you to you. This is your last Longevity Week special, if you like, and I thank you very much for introducing me to the group, and thank you so much for the service. And we've still got you for another 6 months, so you're not out of the door yet, but really it's been an amazing journey, and I can't thank you enough for the opportunity to serve. So with that in mind, I'd like to just bring up a couple more slides. We're nearly there, but these are the odds and sods that we might talk about for how you might get involved and things like that. So please do bear with, we'll only be a couple more minutes. But we are really keen for anybody who's not a member of this group to join us today. So if you don't feel like you're a member at this point, or we certainly don't have any membership cards or anything like that, but if you would like to join, just drop a little note into the chat here and we will follow up and make sure that that happens. Please do take a look at the work that we have been conducting on YouTube. There is a lot of educational content that will support you with knowledge exchange, particularly if you're in the retail space or you're interested in retail. Do take a look at Aging Bites. We're also pretty active on LinkedIn. And so if you wanted to follow us, we're the British Society of Gerontology, Special Interest Group, Aging, Business and Society. It's a long at, but you'll get there in the end. We're going to be back with you in Q1 with news and dates for our exciting workshops. And thank you, Ian, for illustrating, what we're very excited about for the year ahead. And also importantly, we've all talked about there are changing finances over the last year or so, and how our dimensions are changing. If you are interested in sponsoring the work of the SIG, we would be delighted to hear from you. So with that in mind, please keep thinking about the longevity on the sustainability of our gerontology and residence program, how that is changing attitudes and behaviors in business. And so it's that sort of thing that we're looking for support for. So with that in mind, I would just say one more thing, which is next slide. Thank you so much to our sponsor, UKRI, over the last couple of years. This has been an amazing opportunity for us, and we're really grateful for the support and sponsorship that you've provided to us. And with all of that in mind, I wish you all a wonderful evening, and thank you so much. Goodbye.
Thank you.